What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for July 17th, 2023. Well, we have a small update to 3.19 that might help prevent wipes in the future, but no word on when we'll see 3.20. The Hull C in 3.20 may have more of an impact than we thought, and is CIG wasting even more backer money? All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all of the official Star Citizen news each week, put it into one video, and share some of my opinions about it. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, every day but Monday, so I can get this video out to you guys. Link in the description for that. And we do have a little bit to get through this week, so let's start out with what's going on with that hotfix. Alright, so again, it's just a very small hotfix that addresses persistence issues. More importantly, what they call LTP, or long-term persistence. And this is just, I bought a ship in game and you patched and now it's gone. I looted a bunch of items and now I have more of them, right? Like all sorts of weird things have been happening since the 3.18 cycle. When they said we were going to wipe, they didn't. When they didn't say we weren't going to wipe, they did. And it's just, everything has been all over the place in terms of communication around this, because I think that it's all was very broken, right? And hopefully these are some of the final steps towards resolving a lot of those issues and having a little bit more stability in terms of progress in the game, what little we do have, right? But yeah, that's really all we have for what's been going on with the patch. There's no word on where 3.20 is. Obviously, they've been doing a few Evocati updates, but that's all just like super hyper-focused Arena Commander stuff. There hasn't been an actual patch, as far as I'm aware, for that. So yeah, I don't know when we're going to see this, and it seems a little bit farther out than originally expected. And then for roadmap updates, we don't have anything too crazy here, all very much expected stuff. And we start out with Seraphim Station, which is going to replace PO. We saw that on Inside Star Citizen. And again, I don't know how I feel about it. It does, we kind of need it, because it will be nice to be able to respawn above Orison, but, that's really the only benefits that we gain from this right now. And then, obviously, you lose all the nostalgia, and the way that they went out wasn't exactly the best, in my opinion, but what can you do? Well, they're also adding Crusader platforms, which I think we've had a little bit of info around this, where I don't know the exact scope, but they're basically bunkers that we have in other locations, and that's how they'll do them here. And then committed for 3.20 experimental modes. These are probably going to be the staples of Arena Commander, depending on what modes are running. We know they did a Master Modes test. I think anytime running that would be incredibly popular, right? But in general, it allows them to have fun and try some goofy stuff, and who knows? Some of that can lead into some really fun game mode, or maybe even something that we do in the persistent universe. Salvage contracts. We've heard a little bit about these already, and yeah. The older salvage contracts they did were actually done before they knew we were going to be able to remove weapons and components from ships. So they were really focused around, I guess, hull stripping, but players were going to these locations without hull stripping and just abandoning the mission, and they were probably getting a lot of weird feedback around those missions, so they made some dedicated hull stripping missions where that is the only goal of the mission. So look out for those in 3.20. And then Hull C is, not much really to add here, but behind this actual update that they're giving is that they're going to put the ship in. But we saw on Reddit from Jake Alapella that we can expect something from CIG in terms of communication in the coming weeks or months, God knows how long 3.20 will be, that the bare minimum is we'll see some larger containers, like the ones that we saw in ISC, and they'll talk a little bit more about that. And for me, a really good update would be like maybe a rebalance of trade, so what we're trading between stations actually makes sense for the whole sea, things like that. But that's probably the best I can hope for. What do you guys think we might see in this update, knowing that they have some plans to do a little bit more around cargo than just add the hull C, right? And then the last thing was wheeled vehicle improvements. Basically, it just comes down to this. The people that work at the vehicle experience team are some hardcore sim racers. I think the lead was a professional sim racer at one point. So we can expect this to be a very good update at some point. I don't know if this one is particularly that update yet, but eventually we can expect our ground vehicles to probably work very well, since that's a lot of those guys' expertise. And that's really all we have for roadmap updates. Again, a lot of very small roadmap updates over the last few months, and I can't imagine that that won't continue. I'm sure the next time maybe we'll hear a little bit about that cargo thing, right? But let's move on to the Squadron 42 monthly report. And with that, we always just pull things that may have something to do with the PU at some point, right? Squadron 42 is its own standalone game, and it's going to be its own thing, but we have no idea when it's going to release, and we have very little information on it outside of these pretty vague updates. So let's start out with gameplay features. They've done a lot of work on the Mobi-Glass, and it's, you know, pretty heavy, or working on that, and they integrated the Galactopedia, which is something I would love to see for exploration inside the PU. As you play, you learn more. It feels like we know too much for, you know, as soon as a new player, as a new player logging into the PU, don't you feel like you just like know everything, and you have all these quantum markers? I think it would be kind of cool for you to take missions that would integrate you into the world, and you would learn about places, and then the Galactopedia would save that information, including the quantum location, right? I don't think that has to be for everything, but it would be nice for some things, like maybe even a jump town, for example, I think would be really nice. And then for vehicle features, control surfaces are finalizing. But as with master modes, this is probably done in an incredibly small number of ships, like, you know, most likely just the Gladius, and it's most likely not even close to ready for us, outside of maybe an experimental mode in Arena Commander. It's just for Squadron 42. A lot of UI work as well that we desperately need, but only if it's good. CIG has yet to deliver a UI that has been usable in its game so far, I think, or serviceable. And it's been pretty rough. Let me know what you guys think about some of that stuff, especially the UIs that we've had, right? And then VFX, there were a couple of VFX sections here, and they talked about improved water at one point and also improved fire. So maybe some of the things that they've teased on ISC over the last like 15, 20 years, we'll be able to see on the live servers soon. But spoiler alert, I don't think we will. And then for video updates, we had no ISC, as Jared is still on vacation from ISC, and the teams are out, or whatever they do every few weeks, it feels like at this point. But we did get a Star Citizen Live titled Arena Reborn Part 3. It was a more in-depth talk about Arena Commander, and they started out with the first question, which is about private lobbies, and they stated that they want them in, but then Jared asked this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are these custom matches in Alpha 320?
Yes.
Cool. What were you going to say, Sean?
Yeah, the reason we paused is it's coming in literally as we speak.
Yeah.
Right? That's why both of us went, well...
Actively being worked on.
Checks
with the highest priority.
Checks in the mail, but it's not quite that bad.
All right, so the goal is for the custom matches to be part of Alpha 320.
Yeah, we were pushing really, really hard for that. The next update from Arena Commander had to have that back in. We know how much the community wants it. We know how much the devs even want it. I mean, for a bunch of different reasons anyways, but being able to set up private matches for the community is imperative. So we want to support it.
So they don't quite sound committed for 320, and that being, you know, big for things like Atmo Esports and XGR, I think that these will be really great for those groups, right? But it might be cool for creating good org practice and things like that as well. So we definitely desperately need them. They know it, and it's just a matter of getting the work done. And then next, they talk about a rank system, and that's near and dear to my heart. As I've trained in Arena Commander, it can be brutal to go against the best.
We've come a long way in matchmakers in the game industry overall, where it's got to be region dependent, it's got to be skill dependent, it's got to be time dependent. There's so many different angles of matchmaking. So, sort of with that, Duncan, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're gonna do for these guys?
Yeah. So as you guys know, we have the leaderboards that are currently online, and they haven't really been representative of, well, leaderboards for a while now. The algorithm behind them broke. people have found many exploits behind those leaderboards. So we want to like completely rework those at the same time as doing this proper matchmaking. And that matchmaking is the thing that will have to come later because it needs more help from Turbulent on the online side. But the competitive community in Arena Commander and Star Marine is so passionate, I'll say, about leaderboards and that matchmaking behind it. And we really want to hone in on that and especially push Squadron Battle and Duel to be our primary competitive modes because we think those better reflect those as well.
Okay, so more of things they want to do but haven't done yet. Obviously, 320, they've shared many times that this is the groundwork of all of the problems that were around leaving Arena Commander alone for so long getting fixed. Getting those fixed was the priority for this. The cool stuff, like a rank system, will come later. We don't know when. So in 320, you're still going to get absolutely dumpstered by really good Arena Commander pilots. So prepare yourself for that. Whatever room there is in a lobby, you're going to end up in it, whether you belong in it or not. And then more around Arena Commander, obviously, they talked about rewards. And for me, I think rewards are really important as, well, they talked a lot about Arena Commander being a test bed in previous updates, and this kind of solidifies some of my doubts, I guess, or makes me not have those doubts around Arena Commander.
Yeah, so we have a lot of ideas. We had a brainstorm session, right, where we had so many ideas of different ways to reward people. And right now we're going with the simple wins. So we're keeping it simple with Spectrum badges because they're fairly easy to get, but we've got some more challenging, I'll say, challenges coming up, which we're hoping will have better rewards. It's more than just Spectrum badge. We're talking with, PU teams, the Spectrum teams, and seeing what more we can give that's got a little bit more flair to it. And even within Arena Commander itself, like we want to reward people with stuff in-house to Arena Commander. So Arena Commander actually supports skins and all this stuff. So we're hoping to get those as rewards eventually.
Cool.
Yeah, so just to piggyback off that, like, the questions in regards to some of the matchmaking, ELO ranking, as well as this are all related. What this has to do is some level of progression within Arena Commander, a reason to play this. And a lot of us this generation of gaming before, we kind of need some progression. You need some level of a little bit of persistence and a little bit of progression within each one of your game modes, so that there's you kind of feel like the reason to keep logging in and to keep playing it. And we want to have all of those things within Arena Commander, and it's nice because we have an entire game of content to pull from. And a lot of these are the same conversations that we had during times of when Fire Sprite was working on Arena Commander. It was all the same sort of progression that we'd like to still put in place here, but we've got to get all the fundamentals, just like we talked about, in place first, which is the badges, the experimental modes, and private matches. And now that we've got that kind of stuff, now we start making the more reasons for the players to be there, and a little bit more driving the engagement, if that makes some sense.
Yeah, so this is great. This is what I wanted to hear, is that they want it to be its own separate game mode that people play. Obviously, it's going to have testing purposes, but the fact that they want progression in it means that they want it to be a game. It's not just, oh, here's an experimental mode for these things that we need feedback on, guys. Go to Arena Commander and test it. Oh, you're worried about dying in the PU? Oh, well, there's Arena Commander for you, right? Like that, the way they communicated it in previous videos, I really didn't like, but this is really good, right? Like, it's obviously going to have that value for the PU and for data, but at the same time, the only way to get valid data is if people really feel inspired to play it, and I think rewards will really help with that. And then continuing on with this confidence building that they're giving me, they said this.
Yeah, I mean, Fears of War, near and dear to my heart. Spent many years working on it. And it's one of those things, we play tested it every single week with the company. And it's one of those things I look back on, similar to my experience with the vehicle team, is that why aren't players involved? That there is shortcomings of it, but with experimental modes, hopefully we can have that caveat. We can bring, the player cap down. We want to target 50 plus or whatever it may be players, but for now we're going to try 20 because the performance is more acceptable, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that we need to get it out there, right? It's been in the cooker for far too long, right? And Players just need to experience it. We need to continue developing it. And part of stage 1, laying the foundations, which we've been experiencing up till 320, is all about getting those critical refactors that we're maybe holding some critical things back with Fears of War and other things that we want to work on. And we simply needed to take that time, do those refactors, and then we can visit the big exciting things, right?
Yeah.
And in case that wasn't clear, that was about Theaters of War, right? And that, why weren't we involved? Why aren't we involved in master modes? Like things like that. Like these things don't need to sit empty with us for so long. You're testing them internally. What makes it so hard to test with us, right? So I think this gives me a lot more confidence with this team being valuable and not wasting time and money, and that they are actually going to provide that value, which is really, really good. We did have some extras as well, so I'm just going to list those off so you might catch me reading my monitor here. They do want to do spectator modes, and it doesn't sound like it's going to be in 320. I saw a lot of excitement around this, but again, I don't expect this for a while. It's another want, but not something that they have. It doesn't even sound like it's actively in development. There are no downstates in Star Marine, but they might test Squadron 42 medical gameplay, but at some point, so who knows? Capture the Idris is still in the cards, but okay. So are millions of other of Chris's ideas, so that was sort of an interesting thing. AI FPS modes are planned. The Good Doctor map was actually intended to be that, with this whole backstory and everything, and they talked to competitive players a lot, and one of the highlights and things that they wanted the most was like a 2v2 v2v2 mode, where you can, you know, really practice teamwork and all that. And that was really it for SEL. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and let's move on to some other updates. And we'll start out with a not-so sneak peek. We actually shared this a couple weeks ago. It was in Jump Point, which is a paid subscriber thing. So it was a sneak peek for them a few weeks ago. It's a sneak peek for everybody now, but it's the Fury LX, which looks like a racing version of the Fury because we don't see any weapons on it. No big deal there. CIG merges with Turbulent is probably the biggest news that we had this week, and it's no surprise at all, right? Turbulent's been basically doing a lot with CIG since 2012 as far as the website goes, and then over the last couple of years they've been doing a lot in terms of game development and really growing as a studio, and I think we expect them to continue to grow and to continue to help Star Citizen's progress. I do pose the question, it's what the thumbnail's about and what the title's about, is you know, what really has changed here other than Benoit and I think the other guy's name was Mark getting rich, right? Like, I don't think anything's changed here. These guys were going to be in-house and doing these things anyway. Maybe I think Montoya had a really good video about this that might, you know, the Canadian dollar is a little bit different than the American dollar, so employee costs might be lower there. So the idea of having a big studio in Montreal might make a lot of sense. I think that's why a lot of other game development studios are in that area as well, as far as other tax breaks and things like that. CIG does similar things in the UK, right? So are they wasting our money? In my opinion, no. Probably not. This is probably a smart move on them. Maybe, you know, spending some money in the short term, but who knows? They could just probably throw out a few concept ships and they'll be just fine, right? Especially if it's a really big one. Go ahead, CIG. You've been doing it for 15 years. Go ahead and do some more. It doesn't matter at this point. But yeah, I have a full React video on this, so you guys can check that out. But my feelings around it are the Montreal team came in and things started happening. And yeah, so that is really important. And I think that they're a valued studio to this team, if not one of the most valued studios, and probably will become incredibly important in Star Citizen's development going forward. But I don't think it was a waste. I think it's a smart move, and I hope it really does work out. The last thing that we have on today is a lore post, which was community questions that you can ask the lore team, and they responded. So one of the things was, well, you know, what happened to Miner's Lament? Why did it become like this defunct mining place and now it's a racetrack? So little information in this on how that happened. And then the last one, which again, I'm just pulling things out that I think were interesting, is could apply to some gameplay. They shared what planets do with waste, and they kind of talked about some of them maybe turning it into an RMC-like commodity. And as many of you know, RMC is the only commodity that is a crafting material currently. So I think that that's really cool. And I think maybe that has some impact on how the whole sea might be working, as scrap and waste and things like that are really the only things that are currently traded at stations. So I think we'll start to see some of the plans around that coming into fruition. But that was Week in Review. So thank you so much for watching. As always, guys, I cannot thank you enough for watching these videos. Likes are huge. Anytime you guys, do things like that, comment, all those things, it's a huge help to the channel. You guys are literally letting me live my dream job. I get to stream on Twitch 6 days a week, make YouTube videos here, make YouTube videos on my React channel, and I am just, it's the only time I've been happy in my life since I've become an adult with the situation that I'm in, and I just really, really appreciate it. So, anything else would be, if you wanted to go above and beyond here on this channel, you have the join button, but that's really it. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the support over all this time, as always, and we'll catch you in the next Week in Review. Thanks for watching. See you next week.